ladies and gentlemen, the Chatswood Show Band, Willoughby Council Chatswood Show Band, under the baton of Mr. Mark Tchaikovsky, the Willoughby City Band. That was sensational. They're going to clear the stage very kindly so we can get into our afternoon sessions, which are going to be fascinating indeed. Just a little bit of a promo leading up to the 2014 convention. It's called the WASRAG promo. I guess you're all familiar with that. Okay, it says access to water improvement. Access to safe water, improved sanitation and hygiene education are essential for human development. Yes. WASRAG, the Water and Sanitation Rotary Action Group. I'll repeat. WASRAG, the Water and Sanitation Rotary Action Group, has organised the World Water Summit number 6, which will be held on the 30th of May. That's the actual day before the convention actually starts, which is on the Friday before the convention. It's at the Sydney Masonic Conference and Function Centre in the city. It's a one-day summit and will focus on the benefits of collaboration to carry out the effects of WASH, which is water, sanitation and hygiene. Those students from overseas must be wondering what we're talking about. Gosh. In less developed countries of the world. Okay, so there we have. Come along and learn how to make WASH programs work. Brochures are providing further information about the summit. Number 6 are available outside the East Timor display area. So there we go. Enjoy that. Okay, we're back for our afternoon session. We nearly cleared the stage. Wasn't lunch really good? Bruce, you reckon it was good? I mean, it was lovely sandwiches, fresh. They weren't stale. They weren't. The Rocky Road was the best part. A bit of fruit to balance the diet, all that sort of thing. But, you've been to various conferences like I have, and sometimes it's a bit, how's your father? That sort of thing. But we're pleased to say the catering today has been splendid. The venue is a divine venue to be in. The staff here, give them a round of applause. The staff here, and you can see under Brett, the staff here, Harry and Nick and Brett and Hayden and Nick are all doing a great job keeping all the technicalities. And backstage is an unsung hero who may get a bow later on this afternoon if we let him. And Mr. John Melville, who is actually the techo genius of the century. By the way, those who are waiting to see what the next Rotary tunic is, it's this. So you have to wait till 2016 to get one of these. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've settled down, you've had a good meal, you've had a chance to look around, and now's the time to settle back and listen to our next keynote speaker. I'm not going to introduce them both. I'm going to ask Rotarian Lynn Davies to do that job most admirably. Please put your hands together for Lynn Davies.
Thank you, Tom. This presentation, Technology Advances in the Disability Sector, is linked directly with my District Governor Partner project on hearing health. As Graham's partner and a Rotarian, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to pursue my passion about the importance of hearing and reconnect with my vocation. I've requested this year that we all look around us to ensure that our communities, both locally and internationally, are in good hearing health. Why? Because hearing matters. Ask all the people that were just at the Women in Rotary breakout where we didn't have a microphone. Perfectly modelled. And it's easy to focus, she says, on health, hearing and health in our district if we work together through the Rotary areas of service. Club, community, international, vocational and youth, and I'm going to add conferences, given what happened just before. I started with club service by asking my own club members at Terrigal the question, can we all hear well at Rotary meetings? Because of their varying needs, the answers varied, and we need to be, the word's been flexible today, I think. Also, Graham and I started that journey by each of us having our hearing tested. Ask us about it another time. I've discovered, though, in District 9685 that some clubs have awesome, well-established programs in hearing matters, both locally and internationally. Other clubs have initiated great things this year: hearing health checks in the community, hearing tests in the Chinese Australian community, invitations to local hearing professionals to be guest speakers at meetings and maybe become members. Also hoping that we'll raise enough funds for an Australian Rotary Health PhD. I think Graham mentioned that before. Also, at the International Convention in the future, there will be hearing testing in the Billabong, and the Rotary Action Group, RAG, in hearing, will have a booth there as well. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you two people from the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children. That organisation has been mentioned several times today, and I've just been telling Chris and Melissa. They are Christopher Wren and Melissa McCarthy from the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children, known as RIDBC. Chris and Melissa are engaged with families, technology, education, corporate relationships, and fundraising. They and their colleagues, some of whom you are about to meet, make a significant difference in the lives of many children. Christopher Wren is the CEO of RIDBC at North Rocks. Christopher joined RIDBC in 2010 after working as the General Manager of the Sydney Cochlear Implant Centre. His early career was in health management within the public and private sectors. He's a Harvard Club Australian non-profit fellow, and he's married with 3 children. Melissa McCarthy is RIDBC's Director of Educational Services. Melissa joined the company in 2004 and moved to her current role in 2012. Her background is in speech pathology, audiology and deaf education. She was manager of Teleschool for 5 years. And what on earth is Teleschool, I hear you ask? Please sit back, relax, and be transported into another world. Let's get up to date with what happens, technology advances in the disability sector. Please welcome Christopher and Melissa.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here at this wonderful turnout. I have to say it's 10 years since I've been at such a large Rotary gathering, and it'll be great to give you a bit of an update about where technology sits relative to the disability sector. If I can start by saying the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children in its proud history is well supported by Rotary and the community in which we operate. RIDBC today is the largest non-government provider of hearing and vision services, and we service some 3,000 children across Australia. In the communities where we operate, we are well supported in so many different ways by Rotary, and we thank you for that support. Particularly our head office in North Rocks has a very fond and long-standing relationship with the Rotary Club of Carlingford, and it's a pleasure to have their markets there every Sunday, rain, hail or shine. We also are very lucky in that we get a lot of corporate support. So I know that many of you in your corporate lives are supporters of the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children, and we look forward to those partnerships that do so much good work for children with hearing loss or vision loss. If I can start by saying a couple of things. The first is my colleague here, Melissa McCarthy, is probably one of the most preeminent experts in regard to telepractice in the world. And it's an absolute pleasure to watch how she actually works technology to really make life-changing outcomes for children with hearing or vision loss. And that has been pioneered through a lot of the work of Teleschool, and we'll hear a bit about that today. Later, you'll also see Colleen Saris, who is another guru in telepractice relating to audiology. And the work that she's doing that you'll see a small snippet of today is really groundbreaking. It's been developed by centres in Australia and will have benefits throughout the world in terms of opening access for cochlear implant and related technologies. This is probably the point which I want you to go home with. It's not today, pity the poor child with disability, pity the child that is hearing impaired or vision impaired. Today, the opportunities for those children are better than ever before, and technology is making a real difference. It starts with the diagnostic aspects, but it goes through to the different things that we can see through things like cochlear implants and some of the access technologies which I'll talk to you about today. Our mission is to provide quality and innovative education and other related services to achieve the best outcomes for children with hearing or vision loss throughout Australia. When you look at technology, I think that mostly we like to believe that technology makes our lives easier. And for you and I, technology is wonderful, but I have to say for people with disability, it's really game-changing stuff. So rather than define technology in a technical sense, as I've got it up there on the screen in front of you, I'd just like to say technology, when done well, makes outcomes better and life outcomes much, much better. I think a lot of you might use your example of your car radio. In the old days, you pushed one button to get a radio station. Now you have to go through 5 different menus. But I have to say, the technology that we're showcasing today isn't like that. So this is good technology doing good work. So much so that our vision over the next, up to 2016, is really to use innovation and technology to improve the outcomes and the lives of children, the communities, and, if you like, the families and professionals who work with children with disability. And we're doing that across Australia. So a couple of quick technologies of importance. Well, there's bionics, and the cochlear implant would be an example of one of those. In the future, we'll see vision implants, I have no doubt. They will only be really accessible to those people who have a very special type of vision loss, because believe it or not, most vision loss is not concerned with the eye, but actually concerned with the brain. So when you look at a cochlear implant, it's actually taking over from where damage exists at an ear level, whereas vision loss is a lot more complicated. And I think the only way I can, make it easier is to say it took us a long time to go from radio to television, and I guess that's the journey that we're on now. And then there are access technologies, and they are everything inclusive of what the iPad and the iPhones are doing today, and specialised access and orientation equipment that people with vision impairment may use. And I look forward to overviewing that. So as we look at cochlear implant technology, we're going to see today a mapping session, which is where we're tuning a cochlear implant using video conferencing, where we're connecting an audiologist in one area through to a child who might be in a remote location, and we're going to be watching it here in downtown Chatswood, which is great. So a cochlear implant isn't like a hearing aid. A hearing aid works like this microphone. Cochlear implant aims to replace and mimic, if you like, the nerve functioning within the inner ear. And so it doesn't amplify sound, it recreates the electrical frequency that the brain interprets as sound. So cochlear implant technology has been around now for 30-odd years, and you'd have to say that Australia should take a bow because we invented the very, very best technology. Today, probably the biggest challenge that we face with cochlear implant technology is accessibility to the service. The surgery is but a day in the life of an individual with a hearing loss, but the ongoing development, for instance, in a child where you have to teach them how to make use of that sound, develop speech and language, and continually tune that device is really important to get much more community accessible. And we'll show you one of the ways that we're doing that today. When you look at iPads, believe it or not, an iPad straight out of the box has accessibility options built into it, which are absolutely wonderful. Today, you can reverse the polarity of the screen so you can have white writing on black background. You can enlarge the font with a flick of a finger. Now, we've got departments at the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children that do enlarge font and convert things to Braille. But today, a humble iPad can do all of that, really, just with inbuilt, straight out of the box technology. So it really is a case of saying that that's a game changer. So you can see that children in the future and today, you could see 2 children sitting in a coffee shop using an iPad to open up access in ways that wasn't possible before. One of them might have a disability and one of them might not be, but they're still using the same platform, which makes it less special and, more important, more integrated into a mainstream environment and more acceptable, which is wonderful. There's also Braillers. Obviously, children with complete vision loss are still learning Braille, and technology has made it much easier. So you're seeing a Perkins Brailler there with the child in front of you, but using an iPad, you can have a Bluetooth Brailler. So if Helen Keller was born today, who had both hearing and vision loss, you could use an iPad to interface with anyone. So she could use Braille to Bluetooth connect to an iPad that could convert that Braille to text so that a person who had a hearing loss could read it on the screen. Or it could be converted to speech output so people like us could understand what she's saying when she's using Braille as the input. And the same is true in reverse. As you speak, the iPad can convert that into Braille and send it back to Helen Keller. It would be a very different day. So while Helen Keller strove to make sure that a quality education was available for people with a sensory impairment, the humble iPad is kicking great goals in that way. And that's just another example of an iPad cover with a brailler attached. But before I move on, I'd have to say that one of the other things that iPads are fantastic and the smartphone generation is wonderful at is actually things like personal satellite navigation. So we might think that's a great gizmo to have in your car when it directs you to places that you don't know. But for a person who has a vision impairment or who's blind, navigating in unfamiliar areas is really, really tough. And so the idea of using an iPad or an iPhone to direct you, not just, if you like, what street you're on and turn left to get to this location, but some of the apps are now so powerful that they will tell you not just where the railway station is, but which platform you need to orientate yourself towards, to which train you get on, to which station you're approaching so you can alight at the destination you need. Bus travel was a thing that really scared a lot of vision impaired people because if they got on the wrong bus, quite often they would find themselves horribly lost. iPhones and smart technologies are actually making a huge difference there. And the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children have developed 7 and are continuing to advance more iPhone apps to help reinforce the learnings associated with what our work does, but equally to help children embrace this technology. At the moment, we're working very hard on an app that helps a vision impaired or a blind child understand how to use an iPad. And you might say, how does a touchscreen work with a person who has no sight? Well, straight out of the box, it'll read to you where your finger is travelling on the screen, or you can use different types of tapping on the screen to elicit different responses from the iPad. That's straight out of the box, and the world is much more inclusive for disability, which is absolutely wonderful. So these are examples of some of the iPad apps that we've developed, and again, the job here is to work with parents and work with children to reinforce the learnings. And most importantly, it opens up access across the world. So a lot of our apps, like our Auslan Tutor, has had hundreds of thousands of downloads across the world, which is really impressive, but most importantly, reinforcing the learnings that we have had over 153 years of our development. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa McCarthy, who's going to talk to you a little bit about Teleschool, as mentioned earlier, and then segue into the remote mapping of Cameron, who's based in Cairns, who we'll see live today. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Chris. So as Chris said, we're using technology really to reach out to families across Australia who otherwise wouldn't have access to the specialist hearing and vision expertise that we can offer at North Rocks. And so what we've really striven to do is to actually bring that expertise to where the families are rather than bringing the families to where the expertise is. And so this is a map that just shows you some of the locations where families are located across Australia who are accessing our Teleschool program. And it's a national program, and we're, as I said, working to provide families with the expertise that they need where they are. Because what we found was a lot of families who were living in rural and remote areas really struggled to get the support that their children needed, and often would rely on moving house to move to a metropolitan city where they could access those services. And Teleschool allows them to stay where they are, manage their supportive networks in their local community, but still provide the best services for their child. So it's really the best of both worlds. And we rely heavily on technology to deliver the service, and we use a combination of different technologies, and that includes studio-based video conferences. So we've had a lot of relationships with hospitals and TAFEs and universities where we use the equipment that's already existing there. But for the majority of our families, they're actually using the equipment in their home, which you'll see a little bit later on. And that could be specific video conferencing equipment that we loan to them while they're enrolled in the program, or it could be using an iPad, for example, as Chris mentioned, using an app on the iPad to have a video conference back to where we are in North Rocks. We're currently supporting 200 children with hearing or vision impairment right around the country, and the students range in age from birth to 18 years of age. Now, Teleschool has a couple of different components, and the the majority of them are what we call synchronous components. So those are the things that happen in real time, live for the family. And that includes individual video conferencing sessions. It also includes group video conferencing sessions, telephone contacts, parent education sessions, residential visits. So Chris talked a little bit earlier about some of that GPS applications on the iPhone. In January, we had a group of about 20 students down, ranging in age from about 10 to 16, and they went on a big field trip, blind students, into the city of Sydney, using some of those apps to learn how to navigate around the city and become more independent learners. And we also provide audiology services, which again you'll see in a little bit. That is complemented by what we call asynchronous components, or things that don't happen in real time, things that happen on demand when families have time. And those are things like educational packages that we send to them that contain resources and lesson plans to help them continue to support their child's development. It includes emails, some of those apps that we talked about. And we also have a dedicated website where parents can connect with one another, children can connect with one another, and they can also connect with professionals. And so I thought I'd start by showing you just a little snippet of what a video conference looks like. This is a little boy called Cruz who has a vision impairment, who lives in about an hour and a half outside of our Hunter Centre, and he spends some time coming into the centre for sessions, but primarily uses video conferencing.
We found out Cruz was vision impaired from 4 months, and with a bit of a shock, the RIDVC helps Cruz with the video conferencing, and we do it once a week for an hour. Yeah, and we're working on fine motor skills at the moment, and it's good because it's in the comfortability of your own home kind of thing.
What the video session does is gives parents the ideas and strategies to develop the children's language and communication and skills, and to implement those in their normal everyday environment.
Particularly in the Hunter area, where traffic and distance can really put a barrier between families and accessing quality early intervention services. By having the video conferencing in the home, the parents are a lot more confident because they're the ones that are actually doing the session and interacting with the child. The teacher's role is to really upskill the parent to be the child's teacher, and they're then able to implement the activities in their everyday environment.
The support has been outstanding, and to have the video conferencing in your own home is just, it suits us down to a T, being so far away in the regional area. So, if it wasn't for the support services, Cruz wouldn't be where he is today.
So that just gives you a little snippet to see what it actually looks like in real life. Sorry, John, can you just go to the next slide for me? So as you heard there's a number of benefits of telepractice, and that's what we call what we do when we're working by technology. And it really is shown us that there's an increased level of caregiver participation, because the parents really have to become very involved in the session. They're the ones working with the child. We've seen a greater involvement with extended families, so often siblings and grandparents are able to join in. There's more regular attendance because the scheduling is a bit more flexible, and because families are working from their home, if the weather's bad or a sibling is sick, they can still have the session and manage that in their own home. It gives us as professionals an opportunity to see what's happening in the home through a virtual home visit, and it really empowers the parents to be the child's advocate and primary worker for them, to make sure that they're supporting them to develop their skills the best they can. And the big one that we've seen is this transfer of skills from the professional to the parents, because the parents are so actively involved. And some of those benefits were a little bit surprising for us. And so in 2012, we actually put those learnings into a book to share with other people who may not realize exactly how powerful the technology can be. And a lot of that is around transferring the knowledge and skills. And so we spend a lot of time coaching and guiding parents to become the primary facilitators of their child's language. And we got to a point where our technology was letting us down a little bit, because our methodology was terrific, but our technology wasn't keeping up. And over the last 12 months, we've actually been able to install some new infrastructure that's allowing us to expand our services in new and exciting ways. And now we can connect to any device from any location. So as you'll see today, we're dialing from a computer here in Chatswood into our network, and Cameron and his dad are up in Cairns, and they're dialing in from a video conferencing camera, and our audiologist is at another site dialing in, and could easily be doing that, say, from an iPad. So it's been a really wonderful opportunity for us to expand the number of people who are able to participate in those sessions with children. It also allows us to connect multiple families to the same lesson, as you can see in this photo behind me. So that means we could have multiple parents joining into a parent education session, or we could have a number of children participating in a group lesson. And what you actually see here is 3 different children in 3 different locations in New South Wales, Queensland, and ACT, and the teachers here in North Rocks in Sydney. And in this lesson, these children are all Braille users. They all have low vision and are learning to use Braille, and so they're practicing their Braille skills. The teachers have sent them lesson plans and resources ahead of time, and what they're doing is actually practicing their Braille skills by preparing for an upcoming residential week when they were coming to Sydney, and so they were actually going to be team leaders for the rest of the children that were coming, and they were preparing meals, and so they were learning to read recipes that were written in Braille and also write recipes on their own, and so they kept coming back together and working on that activity prior to the residential week. So what we found was that even though TeleSchool was originally developed to meet the needs of families in rural Australia, that a lot of those benefits that we learned about through telepractice are really applicable to any family and potentially have benefits more broad than just for rural and remote families. And so we've actually taken the knowledge that we've gained about telepractice and we're currently applying it to our metropolitan services in what we call a blended service model, which includes some face-to-face sessions or in-person sessions, some telepractice sessions, some of those asynchronous learning opportunities I talked about, and audiological management. And that really capitalizes on the benefits of all of the models and gives families the access to the best of both worlds. So I'd like to finish up by telling you Cameron's story. And I've just got Cameron on my computer over here, and he's been waving to me and doing little tricks over here. But this is Cameron and his dad up on the screen here. And Cameron, his family is a really wonderful example of how blended service can work. So they live in Cairns, and they were participating in the TeleSchool program, receiving weekly video conferencing sessions in-home. And then in 2012, they came down and visited us for a residential week. And during that time, they accessed group sessions, him and his dad. They had individual sessions in person. They had some assessments and some doctor's appointments. And they decided to look at getting a cochlear implant for Cameron. And so at that time, Cameron and his parents came down and stayed on campus at RIDBC for 3 weeks, during which time he had surgery for a cochlear implant, and the device was activated, and he had some other appointments during that time. And then he went back home, and now he has regular follow-up through TeleSchool in his weekly sessions, as well as his audiological mapping through video conference. So what we're going to do now is actually switch over to the other computer, and we'll say hello to Cameron. So that's Cameron up there. Hi, Cam. Let me just unmute you. Can you say hello? Whoa. There's a lot of people there, Cam. So on the left, you see Colleen Soros, who's our audiologist, who will be doing the session today, and Cameron, and his dad's there, but his dad's just off camera. And I'm just going to, you can see us up in the corner, but I'm going to turn us off for now so that Cameron and Colleen can get on to it, okay? All right, Colleen, over to you. Oh, hold on, I've just lost your voice.
Technology is terrific when it works like this. Just while we're waiting for Colleen to come on live, I think that you can see that how access is open to highly specialised services using this technology. And whether that's through TeleSchool or whether it be the cochlear implant mapping that we're seeing today, it really does mean the right services are available to children wherever they're born across the country and, in fact, across the planet.
Yep, that should be good now.
Okay, so Cam, we're going to show everybody how we do your cochlear implant mapping. So can you connect your processor? Turn your head around and show everyone your processor. Can you turn your head around? Yeah. There it is, okay. And what we're going to do is take that off now and connect it to the computer. Can you do that for me? Thanks, mate.
Now, while Cameron's doing that, Cameron, when his parents decided to come down to our program, they were facing a choice of either 6 months in Brisbane or 3 weeks in North Rocks, and you can understand how bringing all the services into a condensed manner was really successful when combined with telepractice.
So we just need to put the cable on. All good. Then Cameron can't hear us now, so we're just going to, in a moment, I'll get you to remind him what he has to do. Okay, we're just going to start by checking some of the electrodes and make sure they're all working.
Yep.
Can you see there? And so what's happening now is we're measuring each of the 22 electrodes that are inside Cameron's cochlea. Don't know whether that's showing up on the screen.
No,
and everything is green, which is good. It's all working beautifully. So we're popping over. So Kevin, can you just make sure that Cameron's got something to hold on to, and when he hears the sound, if he can just let us know.
Can you get a bit of Lego and then when you hear a sound, put it together?
So Cameron wears a hearing aid in his other ear, so that's what Dad's chatting close to that hearing aid so he knows what he needs to do next.
Okay.
Now, the two lines that you're seeing on that computer screen, blurry as they are, the bottom line is the point where a child will just hear a sound, and the upper line is the point where that sound becomes uncomfortably loud, or lower than the point where that becomes uncomfortably loud. So Colleen will be tuning one of those electrodes.
So this is a medium pitch that Cam's going to hear now. He's not hearing anything else but what's going through the computer to his implant. Okay, so he heard that. Good. Good listening. Well done. Okay, we're going to change the pitch a bit now.
This process of mapping is really to make sure that he can optimise his hearing signal, and it has to be done routinely after implantation.
Well done. Good.
Previously, Cameron would have to travel from Cairns to a major city to have this procedure.
So it's a very, very deep tone. So we've just checked all the range of pitch, the middle to high to low pitch. And what we're going to do is switch that on.
That would be a mobile phone.
Isn't technology wonderful?
That's technology, Chris. And there we go. Cam, can you see, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Cam, we're just going to check that you actually can hear all the different sounds. So can you listen very, very carefully and repeat the sounds back to me, okay?
Okay.
Shh.
It's a very soft sound that most deaf people wouldn't be able to hear.
Lovely listening. Good work. This is really soft. Good listening. Well done. So that's the highest pitch that we test, and Cameron's hearing that over the video conferencing, which is really amazing. Well done, you. Okay, listening again. Oh.
Oh.
Good listening. Great job. Just do one more. A really deep sound now. Great work. Great work. Okay. So everything seems to be working well there. Good job.
Does Cameron have a joke for us before we go?
Have you got a joke, Cam?
What?
A joke. Do you have a joke? Tell a joke.
Your golf joke.
Why did a golfer wear 2 pairs of undies?
Why does the golfer wear 2 pairs of undies? I'm not quite sure.
Anyone want to guess?
Do you know the answer?
Hold on, Cam. I'll see if anyone in the audience wants to guess. You ready? You want to see who's here today?
Do you wave to everybody?
There's people up.
Okay, is anyone going to guess why does golfers wear... Oh, we've got a... In case he gets a hole in one, is that right?
Yes.
Very good.
Very loud.
Can I thank Can I thank Cameron and his family for being patient and joining us today. How's the weather in Cairns? Is it warm?
Wet.
It's wet. Okay. I guess this probably highlights to you probably a very, very complex situation, but you saw how an audiologist based in Macquarie University, which is where Colleen is at the moment in the Hearing Hub, can link in to a child in Cairns, and then we can observe here in Chatswood. Really powerful stuff, because there would probably be less than 50 audiologists in Australia who are capable of this type of tuning process. And our job is to make sure that we can get to all of the children who have hearing impairment where a cochlear implant may be indicated. It's really exciting technology. But equally, I think that it, as we've seen in so many cases, it engages the parents and the families in so many great ways. So in Cameron's case, he's blessed to have picked his parents really well, so he's well set up for future success. But quite often, the parent who is the principal worker misses out on a lot of things because they're at work when sessions like this are going on, and you can come in from your iPad and watch it. Or you can later on download the session and see it. Or Melissa can actually even go to the extent of finding snippets that are really pertinent and relevant and distributing it across a blog site so many hundreds of families can benefit from, if you like, something special that happened in a lesson today. So technology is making a huge difference. You've seen an example of how telepractice is making a huge difference here today. And all I can say is, again, don't pity the hearing impaired or the vision impaired child. Celebrate the fact that today the technology is really making a world of difference to the outcomes and what's possible for them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Cam. We'll see you later.
Terrific.
Come back. Another round of applause, please, for Chris, Melissa. Thank you very much. Pleasure. Thank you. And I know Mr. Harold Sharp, past District Governor, would be excited to see that technology, wouldn't you, Harold? It's amazing. That's right, we did. We raised the money, yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me mention a little while ago that coming up in June this year is the most exciting event that we'll experience in Australia, and that's the 2014 World RI Convention. A little bit about it, because I know Harold and a few of us in this room are involved in that particular event. Let me introduce to you Lloyd Rover, who past District Governor, who's the Promotions Chairman, who's going to whet your appetite about the World Convention coming up. Thank you, Lloyd. Come this way.
G'day. Hey, that's pretty good. I've got 5 minutes to tell you that in around 3 months' time, we're going to be invaded by in excess of 20,000 Rotarians from around the world. And just like if they were coming to your house, I'd like to have a really great attendance from our Rotarians in District 9675 and 9685 here in Sydney to welcome them. We have, I know, in this audience, mostly the already converted, those that have already registered or are committed to register. But what I really want is for you to go back to your clubs and tell them, your club members, why they should attend the Sydney Convention. For a start, it's going to be the cheapest convention they will ever go to. They don't have to worry too much about travel. But then they can't tack the holiday on as an excuse at the end. So we've had a great result so far. I know there's a lot of registrations from your district, but we would like to see at least double what we already have. Now, one of the things that I'm finding as I talk to Rotary clubs, not all of the club members have seen our newsletter. That's the corroboree. Everyone seen that? Okay, well, the district governor's been sending it out in his e-news, so it means that somebody in the clubs is not passing it on to the members. And I would like to try and make sure that that is happening, because it's your way or your members' way of seeing what we are doing, what is happening at the convention, and encouraging them to come along and really get the feel of the internationality of Rotary. You know, a lot of us sit in our Rotary clubs, not you, but a lot of our members sit in their Rotary clubs, and that's Rotary. Monday night, Wednesday night, whatever. They might do the barbecue, they might do the other things in their local area. They don't come to district conferences, and they don't go to international conventions and that. And it's when you first participate in those things, your first district conference, your first international convention, that you realise that there is actually 1.2 million Rotarians just like you out there doing the same sort of work and with the same sort of ideals and thoughts. So please make sure that your members are getting the corroboree. If not, go and tap your secretary or president on the shoulder and make sure that they are distributing it to your members. I have 3 sales pitches today. One is we are still desperately short of host hospitality night hosts. Now that's the Tuesday night of the convention. We have been offering to international visitors the opportunity to share a meal or time with individual Rotarians or as a club venue. Please, if you are interested in this, the committee members, I can see Monica sitting down the front here, and Harold sitting here, those in the white shirts with this logo, not the other colours, see them, and we've got some forms for the host hospitality night. We also have some forms because we still need volunteers. Now they are not the sergeants at arms that are at every convention. They are appointed by Rotary International. These are our volunteers that we need for the railway station, the airport, and just in the grounds of Olympic Park, helping people, our international visitors, to get around. We also still have some requests for homestay. Now, as distinct from the host hospitality night, the host hospitality night is Tuesday night, one night only. Homestay is if any of you have the opportunity to offer a bed to either a Rotarian or a couple, or maybe even more, in your house for the duration of the convention, then please, we'd love to know that also, because we have international visitors that would love to experience our Rotary hospitality in Sydney. The other thing that I have to promote is and Bob Aiken's here, so I'll get into trouble if I don't promote this, the Down Under breakfast. It has been traditional for a lot of years now that at all of the international conventions, wherever they are in the world, this one just happens to be in our hometown, we have a Down Under breakfast, and that takes place very early one morning before the convention plenary sessions. So please consider, there are limited places for that, consider coming along and joining us. Ron Burton will be there, and I believe that we have the Real Matilda band participating in that breakfast. So please think seriously about, if you're not already registered, but more importantly, give the message to your members. It is the first opportunity for those that have never been to a convention to actually come along and experience, as I said, the true internationality of Rotary, and who knows, it might be the start of them attending future conventions around the world and really meeting up with their Rotarian friends in other parts. So thank you all. I'll be outside for a little while with a whole lot of forms, and as I say, all of our committee members have some extra badges and forms there for you. Please come along. I'd love to see you. I'm not going to buy you all a beer, but maybe I'd accept a beer from all of you. Thank you all.
I know I'll be there, and just as to whet your appetite, the opening act of the House of Friendship is the Deltones. You thought they were dead, didn't you? No, they're not. So come along and see them. They're going to be good. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, every now and again someone comes along whose sheer presence is both intimidating and humbling. Our next speaker is one just that person. I want you to read her CV, especially in the little booklet, because I'm not going to read it out today. But our next guest is Juliana Nkrumah. She's the founder of African Women Australia. She's been the coordinator of the New South Wales Police Force Multicultural Community Liaison Officer Program since July 2008. Prior to her present position, she was the Assistant Manager of the Refugee and Network Support Team in the Multicultural Services branch of Centrelink. She is still actively involved in a range of other activities supporting African communities and refugees in Australia. Juliana managed the work of Centrelink's African Liaison Unit in 2006 and led 2 nationwide consultations into issues affecting refugees and migrants from African countries, and managing the highly successful African Women's Advocacy Unit. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to Juliana Nkrumah.
Well, good afternoon. May I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land on which we gather for our business of this conference. And I would like to pay acknowledges to my friend Lucy Hopgood Brown, who you all know. Lucy has a very persistent and convincing way, and sometimes does not wait for you to draw breath. So she's very diligent, and one that you grow to love with each contact. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you for this invitation. And I've worked with the 5 O's, the women's groups, the BPWs and your Soroptimist and Zonta and in Unifem, but I've never worked with Rotary. So here we go. I hope that I'll be able to do you justice this afternoon. I'd just like to warn you that I'm addressing a given topic from my point of view, and that has been shaped by my lived experiences. Let me also note that I'm from an English-speaking country, Ghana. We used to be the Gold Coast, which is not the one in Queensland, but and I have lived and worked in this country, Australia, for just on 26 years. It took me a long while to get my head around the topic, the motivation for community service, partnerships in harmony. So I kept being asked to send over some images or something, and I said to John, in the end, what about old-time religion, you know, when we used to just talk and not show you anything? Yeah? So here is my topic. And I just gobbled up some images and some words on a PowerPoint. So it's good, because this way I don't kill you by PowerPoint. You know how they go, death by PowerPoint? You're not going to get that. In my thinking and searching, I was led to the conclusion that I should share my story and my journey in community services. The bulk of my career in Australia is marked by my work in the community. A lot of the things that I've done are not part of my livelihood or my career as such, but it's been my voluntary work. I've chosen to operate in the community and worked in areas where I can continue to render service to the community. I have been allowed to do that by my family, which means everything I've done, I've been able to do especially because my husband has been able to step in and look after our children, so I'm able to be freed up to go. So, husbands like mine, I think, need a lot of kudos for what they do. A lot of our men don't necessarily allow their women to go. And I'm saying this because I'm in the process of recruiting women into a program, and a lot of women have come back and said, I really need childcare. So we're still plagued by people being unable to move on to do some of the things they can do in the community because there's nobody to step in for them. I've chosen to come from an angle of my story, my journey, especially after I had researched Rotary Club, and especially Rotary International. I'd recently come across people who have come into community service because they have been told that if you're in community service, you might end up with an award. And, and I've told them that the motto of Rotary, which is service above self, is a motto that leads us into higher service only. So let me pull out of here, through my storytelling, weave through some questions and present us with challenges in a bid to ask us to move forward from this moment. So by the time I'm finished, I would leave you with some challenges. And don't dislike me for those challenges, because that is about partnership in communities. I chose this approach when I read Bill Gates' speech to Rotary International. So I could not be very wrong from the truth, which is principle number 1 in Rotary, isn't it? Right. Having arrived in Australia with a 15-month baby strapped to my back, I joined my husband, who had come ahead of us as a sponsored student through AusAid. This was in the 80s, late 80s. And having been a teacher prior to this in tertiary institutions and at the University of Zimbabwe, the first work I could find to do in Australia was in the factory. And I had to do that just so we could survive. And later, I found myself in welfare services, in material aid. Those times we used to help refugees and disadvantaged people with material aid in Care Force, which is now Anglicare. But I wanted to do more. In my belly was a burning fire. I wanted to do more for the community and in the community. I was motivated by the needs of women. My master's thesis was on women. It was on housewifery in Africa and the question of, is it as a result of colonial penetration? So I still had a head around women and their status and their role in society. I looked with interest at your conference program and found an entry on engaging women. The breakout session, I'm sure it went really well, right? And that included embracing diversity of thought and inclusivity. And I went, oh, that is great. I'm going to talk to you about building capacity. What has led me to work in the community, to give my energies to building and working with women to build a women's organization. So instead of going one by one, I'm going to run around with you and go to number 10 and 11, and then I'll come back to you, okay? Okay. African Women Australia is the women's organization that we built since 2005. And the organization is just a collective of African women or women from African background. A few years ago, we learned about people of African descent. So we're looking at embracing people of African descent towards gaining information, knowledge and skills for sustainable self-representation in Australian political, social, and economic environment. Our key aims, which sets us apart from other African women's groups, is to strengthen the representation of refugee and migrant women from African countries within government policy. Now, all my presentation is going to be about engaging and partnership and collaboration, and to create a political space for expression of leadership across all sectors and develop a strong network of advocates. So we go back to the beginning. Now, what motivates one into community service? I had a chat recently with a girlfriend of mine. I called her up for coffee, and I said, I need to talk to you about my recent challenges with the project and the organization. Her response to me as I left the coffee shop was, I think it's important for you to leave the community sector and go into consultancy. You will do well as a consultant. I'm still not a consultant. So what is the motivation? For me, the motivation is capacity building. And I'm going to run around with you through the PowerPoint because I gobbled the PowerPoint together before I thought of what I was going to really be saying. That's fun, isn't it? Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about how for many years I attended meetings and conferences in Australia and sat on committees and did not find many others like me at the table. As we observed the results of our lobbying activities with the entry of refugees from different African countries, I realized that more and more people were at the bottom rungs of that ladder. That is Einstein's ladder of citizen participation. It was a ladder of community engagement. This ladder, the ladder of citizen participation, was a specific tool that we used in our human rights and representation training for a good 3 to 4 years before we set up African Women Australia. As we looked at the ladder and discussed the meaning for the community, we began to see that people grew in their desire to build their own capacity for engaging in a new country. The organization was set up to encourage African women to tap into their dormant capacities. We built it on the basis that these women have capacity. They've come from their countries of origin. Some have lived in refugee camps for 20 years. And in those camps, they were the leaders. And as soon as they arrive in Australia, it's thank you very much, Australia, but I'll just sit where I am for a little while and sit on the fringes of the society and not get involved. And we were going to move them out of that to a place where they were really partnering. And whenever you put the ladder up, the community will say, we are not even on the ladder yet. And then we say, where do you want to be? And they go, partnership. And what does partnership mean? And the question I also had was, who have I been partnering with on this journey? I became a board member and a committee member of Australian National Committee on Refugee Women. Now, I told you that in my belly was a desire to see working with women in society. So I met somebody who introduced me to Australian National Committee on Refugee Women. And for many years, more than 10 years, almost 18 years, I worked with this organization, supporting the cause of refugee women in Australia and internationally through the work of some of our board members. As the refugees from African countries arrived, I became increasingly uncomfortable with the relationship within the organization. My discomfort was around the way we worked with refugee women. For years, we kept them at the bottom of the ladder. For years, they were at the point of manipulation. They served as fodder for our research and consultations. And I remember Somali women saying to us, we have been over-consulted. And as a result of that, we are going to shut our community's gate and nobody can come in to consult us anymore. Because with all this consultation, we only see it as milking camel onto sand. And when a Somali says to you, it's like milking camel onto sand, you know how important the camel is to the Somali culture. And the camel milk is almost the point of survival. It's like taking our life and wasting it away. Yet we didn't hear them. We didn't listen to them. We kept knocking on the door for consultation. We kept bringing them into our conferences, and so that they could say what we wanted to hear them say. We hosted courts of testimonies and hauled them across town into our university conference rooms so that we could hear their stories. Stories that only went back to re-traumatize them. They were at best tokens. If you look at that ladder, they were at the level of tokenism. And I was at best an apologist for the system. I participated in getting people with the juiciest stories to come and tell. And I'm going to give you a quote. As it is, there is too much placation and manipulation and tokenism in our engagement efforts. I had to come to that point of understanding. What is meaningful and authentic engagement in our community? It is not about giving down or giving a handout to the less privileged. It is about creating opportunities for real decision making. And a lot of people don't like hearing that because we feel comfortable to give a hand to. We don't feel terribly comfortable to do with. I'm not here to say, don't do what you do. What you do is amazing. I'm here to say the future demands something else. It's about creating opportunities for real decision making. I continue to engage in the placation process though, because that was the only way I could. Until one day, as the MC for a court of testimony, I broke down completely and wailed. As the MC for a court of testimony, more than 500 people in the audience, I just broke down and wailed. What was happening to me then? What was happening to me was giving vent to what I was sitting down in my tummy about the need to assist community to build their capacity. Capacity building is about participation and it's about creating ownership in the community. African Women Australia was set up as a result of helping women to come to a position where they understood that they had a stake in the society in which they've come to make their own. It has called for a reflection on the challenge of working in the community on the question of true partnership. Working with communities to move up the ladder of community engagement from disempowered opinion gathering to collective problem solving and shared decision making. So I'm going to take you to another slide and bear with me, please. Okay, that one. We're going to stay there for a little while and go backwards and forwards. In order to do this, point number one is what I want to look at for a little while. Acknowledge our interdependence and the need for increased diversity. Hold on to that point, and I'm going to share my traditional background symbols with you, okay? And that is this symbol. Now, in our culture, we have symbols that speak to us. Every symbol is accompanied by a proverb, and that is our value system. That guides our value system. So only the meaning, the way to our value system, but it's also our spirituality. And on a Sunday, I can talk about our spirituality. That symbol says, Esini Tekrema, it says the teeth and the tongue. What's so significant about the teeth and the tongue? It is a symbol of interdependence. So in talking about community and in talking about capacity building and partnership and real partnership, I go to a symbol like that. Friendship and interdependence. The teeth and the tongue play an interdependent role in the mouth. They come into conflict, but they need to work together. That is the proverb that we work with. How do we acknowledge and accept and incorporate the local wisdoms of the communities that we work with? We will need to embrace diversity, accept diversity of thought and diversity of perception. We need to understand the differing expertise, wisdom, and experiences of different kinds of people, sectors, and ideas. So by bringing together the richness provided by different perspectives, interpretations, and ideas, we begin to capitalize on the growing awareness that diversity trumps individual ability and that our futures are more connected than we like to believe. That's the future. Connectedness is the future. So let's go back to slide number 6 and look for the next piece of knowledge there. Okay. Slide number 6. Okay. Be honest with complexity. This is the hard one. In New South Wales, we have over 220 language groups represented in our society. And increasingly so, we have more groups coming in as migrants, refugees, and international students. It inspires us to contend with diversity on a daily basis, and that is complex. It is complex because it calls for a partnership which is the one that is very different from the partnership that we are involved in when we travel to and then we are able to leave behind and go our jolly way. We live with and this diversity, and it creates questions for us. It creates questions for the population, it creates questions for the whole, it creates questions for the individual. What is required then? It requires us to take note of the different questions and to value the different things. It requires us to live in the context of what John Lennon called ebony and ivory. To be able to understand that side by side on our piano, we work together. I can't sing that song for you because I'm not singing today. And one that you are helping, the one that you are helping, and the community that you are assisting is very much a part of you. Many years ago, I did a little research for Uniting Church on the Piedmont area. And I said to them, it's really important to realize that our missionary field is actually next door. And it's really important to notice that what we live with is what we need to work with. It ushers us into the space where the wisdom of my ancestors comes in again. So I'm going to show you the next wisdom, the next symbol. And maybe one day, when you see me wearing something with those symbols, you will be able to understand them. That symbol says, Bin Kebi. It means it's a symbol of peace and harmony. And it's a symbol that cautions against provocation and strife. It's a real symbol of real harmony. All this calls for accepting and acknowledging our interdependence. The true partnership comes from our own challenges. It comes with its own challenges as well. It actually blurs the line of our previously compartmentalized notions of the world. It creates discomfort. And it brings us to acceptance of cooperation and interdependence. Hence my other symbol. And the one that I looked at and thought, I've never taken notice of this symbol before. And only yesterday I saw my girlfriend wear something that had the symbol in it. I looked at her for a very, very long time, went up to her and I thought, good choice. We call it Boami Namimwao. You help me and I help you. That is interdependency. I would like to end with this picture of partnership by reflecting on something that I picked up on a speech from Bill Gates about the work of polio eradication. Bill Gates noted for Rotary International that eradicating a disease is hard, slow, painstaking work. We cannot circle a year on the calendar and say that by the end of that particular year or that particular date, we would have eradicated that disease. He says doing that sets us up only to fail. Why do I want to borrow that work from Bill Gates? I want to borrow that work because his words took me to another half of my career. I've spent about 11 to 18 years working on female genital mutilation in Australia. And if you look at the Hansard and other documents on female genital mutilation, I've been named as a trailblazer. And it's like going where angels don't want to tread. It's a very, very sensitive and difficult area. But being as foolhardy as I am, got my fingers deep into that. In 2003, though, the Inter-Africa Committee on Harmful Traditional Practices declared and launched the 6th of February as the Day of Zero Tolerance to Female Genital Mutilation. In 2012, the United Nations sponsored that day and declared the 6th of February as the International Day of Zero Tolerance to FGM. In 2003, the IAC marked 2015 as a date by which FGM will be eradicated. I looked at that and I thought, oh, got a lot of work to do. Then I agree with Bill Gates. Setting a date sets us up to fail. 20 years of working in Africa and diaspora. This is something that Australia has again highlighted and started to pay attention to in 2013, following the UN resolution in 2012 that named FGM as part of the agenda of violence against women. And as soon as it was brought into the space of violence against women, many actors came to the table. It was like bees to a honey pot. Many actors came to the table, many of who had in the past never even bothered to look at the word female genital mutilation. African Women Australia then decided that we will not sit aside and let everybody else have a party with this, but we had something to say about this. We had something to say about building capacity in this context, creating partnership for the women and the men in the very community that is attached to this practice. Most of the time, the actors who came to that table were not from the practicing communities. So it became a situation of others talking about them and them not getting a voice in. So we went up and put ourselves up to the minister and said, something's got to be done. So the title of our project is Our Voices, Filling the Gaps. And the main thrust of that project is growing spokespersons on female genital mutilation. Growing spokespersons from within the communities who have this practice, so that what has to be said and what has to be done will involve real partnerships, and the decisions that will be made will come from a position of knowledge and understanding. This project's details will be on our website by the end of next week. We are looking for extra support to be able to ensure that the spokespersons that we grow are spokespersons that will get access to places where they'll be able to make a contribution. So, let me leave you with this quote on true partnership. A community is democratic only when the humblest and the weakest person can enjoy the highest civil, economic, and social rights that the biggest and the most powerful possess. So it's there. I don't have to read it for you again. But mull over it whilst you listen to me. I think if we look at this and we look at it in relation to Rotary, in a lot of cases and with the groups that we work with, Rotary is the biggest and the most powerful. We will really partner. And if we're going to really partner, then we need to ensure that the humblest, the weakest person is able to enjoy the highest civil, economic and social rights through our partnership. We need to work to bring people from the position of manipulation and placation to true equal decision making. Now that's tough, but that's doable. Thank you.
Wow, that was powerful indeed. Thank you, Juliana and Kama. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the Philippines disaster response, can I invite to the microphone Maury Schockman to tell you all about the efforts in that direction. Thank you so much.
Hello from the most northern Rotary Club, North Lakes Tukley. I was going to start with a joke because the after lunch group were asleep, but young Cameron killed me with his joke, so I'm not going to start with a joke. That was really good. It's been 3 months since Typhoon Yolanda, or Haiyan as it's called to the general public, hit the Philippines. So I thought it was worth it just to remind you what happened 3 months ago. And these pictures, I think that picture really got to me when I saw that the next morning. I was fortunate a couple of weeks ago to go to a presentation given by the Consulate of the Philippines, and she updated us on the latest figures. 6,000, as of 28th of January, 6,200 people dead, 28,000 injured, 1,700 still missing, and millions of people displaced. So just wanted to put you back in the mood to November. The media these days, we're inundated by things happening all over the world. Syria here, floods here, something else here. These things disappear off our mind really quickly. So I hope when I finish my little 5-minute speech, you'll see why we decided to look at long-term projects. So, really within hours of the typhoon hitting, DG Graham gave me a call because of the work I've been doing in the Philippines and said, look, I'm putting together a small team to have a look at what our response should be. And within, I think, 48 hours, we met at Graham's office, a small group of us, and we really decided, as a Rotary Club, as a district, we really couldn't just find money and send it. We should look at long-term projects. And I think we'd spoken to people in the Philippines by that time, and they all agreed, look at long-term projects. We also agreed that people like Shelterbox, who are already on the ground in the Philippines, looking after the floods in August, earthquake in October, they were already there doing relief efforts. They were by far the best people to react to the emergency as it happened that day. And I'd like, just indulge me for a second, I'd like to congratulate Shelterbox, please, in the usual way. They've done a terrific job. I thank you for that, because I've been involved with them before and they've done a terrific job. We also want to work, and it was agreed that we would look at working with established relationships we had in the Philippines. When you work in third world countries, it's important to work with good partners. I've worked with them before. We have 3 or 4 good partners, and you'll see as we discuss it further, I think we have some good ideas. Okay, so projects being considered. I'm trying to cut this short as much as I can. Penrith, Tess Hall from Penrith, the President, and Dr. Grace Bonaro. Grace was over there within 48 hours. I spoke to her within 24 hours of landing in the Philippines, and she totally agreed. Let's look at some long-term projects. She was over there working, did a terrific job. They've come up with some projects they'd like us to consider. Things like helping re-establish the rural health units, some classrooms, supply aid to help re-establish some of the supplies of these places. So, and Penrith are committed to a 2 to 3 year project, which really fits in with our plans. North Lakes Tukley, my club. I've been working in the Philippines with my project, and I really appreciate it. Seen our dental program flash up before. I've been working over there now since 1998 on different projects. I have my own foundation, sending kids to school, have a really great relationship with a Rotary Club over there, which I've worked with before, and they've come up with several projects to help a hospital called Divine World Hospital with an X-ray unit if we can find one somewhere. They're looking at supplies, building supplies, also looking at getting kids back to school, district projects to re-establish some of the schools that are damaged and try and get some quick wins. So we're working on that as well. Walter Bock from Burwood. I know within days Walter had 7 or 8 containers shipped to the Philippines with disaster relief stuff. So people are doing stuff all the time and getting things on the way. So just to reaffirm my commitment that we've made with Graham, we're looking at 2 to 3 year projects. The Consulate General we spoke to says the Philippine government is looking at projects right the way out to 2017. So this very much fits in with the Philippine government as well. Press another button. Okay. So, what have we done? You'll find in your bags, I've put in a leaflet that we've already developed, which has got all the bank account details. Over the last couple of weeks, we have established a Rorke's account number, so you can do deposits directly into a Rorke's account. You can do it online, you can do credit card donations, it's all receipted, and so there's a proper system in place now to manage the funds. We hope that as you start thinking of your beneficiaries for June, that you start thinking about, do we have a spare $500 or a spare $1,000? I've already received some money from other clubs, that you can make a small donation collectively as a group of 70-odd clubs in the district. It'll make a huge difference to our group. My own Rotary Club has already donated $4,000. My foundation in the Philippines that I have, these are poor kids, street kids, squatter kids. We've already collected $2,500 just from my foundation. So there's money out there that people are happy to give, so I urge you to please give. Projects will be managed by a small district committee, so please support us. There's a flyer out there with all the details. It's a worthwhile cause, and we're going to keep pumping this in your face over the next 2 or 3 years. We don't need to go away. It's a long-term project. I've worked over there. I've seen what it's like, and really, I really need your help. Well, the district needs your help. The Philippines needs your help, so I urge you to support us. Okay, that's my lot. I'd like to hand you over to a very good friend of mine, Peter Pierce from Shelter Box, who's on next. And he and his group have done a phenomenal job over there. So I'll hand you over to Peter, and thank you for listening to me.
Has anybody got any idea what I'm going to talk about today? Find something that you love, do it well, do it with passion, and do it until. And I certainly have found that not only with Rotary, but certainly with Shelter Box. We thank DG Graham and the team for the opportunity to speak very quickly about our beloved box. But more importantly, as regards to what it's doing and it's saving lives in the Philippines. I've just returned from there after being there on a month's deployment and going back in again on Tuesday. On November the 8th, 2013, Typhoon Haiyan moved across the middle of the Philippines, and the epicenter was in a place called Tacloban. The Philippines has some 2,000 inhabited islands, and aid agencies, including Shelter Box, are finding it difficult to get to those remote islands. We've been doing the majority of our work in and around Tacloban, an island of Baitayan, and in an island of Panay. On Tuesday of this week, the UN said that survivors are still without adequate shelter some 3.5 months after the disaster. And we know that the support for the Philippines, and Shelter Box knows, will go on for many months. And we know this because we've been there. We've got our boots dirty, we've got our clothes wet, we've been bitten, we've been burnt, and our emotions stirred. Our emotions stirred because we did shed tears. It's a situation that what we've discovered is people, children, whole families of 10 or more still living under collapsed galvanized iron, again 3.5 months after the typhoon. We found these families whilst we're travelling around in the mountainous regions and the remote areas, assessing the need for shelter. The rain, the humidity and the mozzies, they produced a few dreaded diseases for us guys. One of our team came down with typhoid, although on the mend now. And the ladies would understand this, and the guys. Few of us men returned home with the man flu, which the men who's had it tells me that is much worse and more painful than childbirth. As a Rotarian, I do understand the amount of Rotarian effort that it goes into raising money to buy a box. So representing you, and that's what I'm doing by the way of your donations, and selecting the beneficiaries, erecting the shelter box tents, and indeed delivering shelter boxes all around the world as a volunteer, to me is a real privilege. But make no mistake, I, like the 200 other shelter box response team members around the world, they take that very seriously as well. Our job as shelter box response team members is to represent shelter box and Rotary well, to get the job done and to stay safe. And also to deliver your shelter boxes and tents to the right people in the right manner, in the right place, at the right time. You may have heard in some instances where aid doesn't get to the intended beneficiaries. That might be the case in some instances, but certainly not with shelter box. And I can tell you why I know that is because people like me personally deliver our boxes directly to the beneficiaries. Winning Country is one of the people who carry out the assessments as regards to who qualifies for a box. Let me tell you, nobody gets a box from us unless they actually qualify under our criteria. And our criteria is a totally destroyed home, nowhere to live, no means of being able to build in the shorter term, and also are the most vulnerable. Those are the being sick, disabled, elderly, pregnant mothers, orphans, and indeed mums with young children. You've seen our tent outside. In the Philippines, Shelter Box is currently distributing and has pledged enough aid for 7,800 families. Now, when you consider, if you look around and say, maybe the family over there is of 7, that's 54,000 people that we've sheltered, which is 100 times more than sits in this auditorium today. You and I know that Australians are the most generous of people. We know that. So when Shelter Box Australia set up a Philippines-specific donation appeal, Australians, and particularly Rotary, donated to Shelter Box a massive amount for the Philippines effort. Excuse me, I'm spitting all over the place. We are making a difference out there, guys, so please keep supporting. Marilyn is going to show you a little later, just as regards to the awesome total that we got. Some of you may say charity begins at home. What we say is charity begins in the heart. And whether it's a child in need, a family in need, in the Philippines, in Africa, or in Sydney, if we can help and we have the opportunity to do so, we will. And I know you'd want to do the same. And as you know, the Filipino people, they're very religious, and if they knew that I was here today talking to you, they'd say, Peter, please be our voice, and relay to the Rotarians of Australia our blessings and thanks for helping our people. To know that you guys care about us, and that you're even sending in volunteers to make sure that the kind donation of shelter boxes gets to the right people, and that's the very people who are most affected. That's the ones that have lost everything. And we say, God bless you. Now I'd like to introduce Marilyn, and she's going to give you that awesome total that I mentioned. And Marilyn is a Shelter Box director.
Hello, everybody. Somebody said to me a minute ago, do you still have that purple fingernail? I do. That's for polio. But these are for Shelter Box. Green fingernails. That's how passionate I am about it. When the directors of Shelter Box heard of the Haiyan disaster, we set a goal of $500,000 to raise from the people of Australia. This sounded a large amount. However, We raised that by 208%. Think about it. That is $1,040,619.67. That 67 cents might have been tipped out of somebody's purse and they could hardly afford it, but that's important. We thank you for that, the people of this district, and we ask those clubs who are still considering their donation to Shelter Box to remember the Syrian appeal. It's not important on the Channel 9 news or any other news now because there are other things that have taken its place. However, those people are still in need. Many are still in cardboard shelters. Many still need those shelter boxes. The aim again was 500,000, but we just don't have that yet. So if your club has even the 67 cents or $67 or $6,700, please donate it. At present, we have $154,768.40, which is 30% of our goal, but we'd love it to be 208% too. Thank you very much, and our stall is outside. Please come and get some pamphlets to take back to your businesses and your clubs. And let me thank you again, and I also want to thank Peter for the great work that he does as a response team member. And having come back with the man flu, he's going back for another dose of it next Tuesday. So thank you for the great work that you do for Shelter Box Australia, Shelter Box in the world. Thank you. I asked Peter, could I get in the box and jump out of it, but he wasn't up to carrying me.
Thank you all involved in the Philippines Disaster Program. It's been an inspiring session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is nearly time for afternoon tea. Wow, we are a little behind. We're going to try and make it up as much as we can. But first, I just want to thank some really important sponsors. You know, you don't have a thing like this without sponsors. And so the very first level of sponsorship, I want to thank Subaru and Ord Minnett. Subaru and Ord Minnett. I also want to thank the Chatswood RSL Club, and I also want to thank the Concourse, Century Venues, and of course Telstra as one of our major sponsors, and not forgetting Willoughby City Council. So I've got some slides for them, but they might come up while we're having afternoon tea. Well, anyway, it's in your program. You know you're going to thank them, and it doesn't matter. Okay, don't forget to purchase your Kamal CD. He's actually in the house, as it were, so you'll see him wandering around. I'm going to ask you to be back here, please, in time for the vocational excellence. We have to start that on time, whether you're here or not, and that starts at exactly you need to be back here at 3:50, please, as soon as you can. I know, oh, by the way, Level 2 have got afternoon tea as well. You don't all have to come down to Level 1. Level 2 has got afternoon tea. So go up the stairs, go by the lift, get a cup of tea upstairs, come back as soon as you can. Thank you so much for all your help. Be back soon.
John says they can have 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
To a close, our presentation on the urban screen today. Rotary International would like to thank Willoughby City Council for the use of the screen and our ability then to bring to you a little information about Rotary and the work it does in our district. Please feel free to contact us should you like to get more information or you'd like to make an inquiry about becoming a member of a Rotary Club. Thank you. Hi, I'm Graham and I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Kincumber and belong to a Rotary district that extends from Manly to Lake Munmora and out to Lithgow. We're here today at the Concourse at Chatswood for our district conference. We'd like to invite you to stay around the urban screen to find out more about Rotary and the programs in which we engage. You may wish to visit our sponsor, Subaru, visit the Shelter Box, or go inside the foyer of the Concourse and visit Ord Minnett or see some of our projects in there. Thank you.
The soccer clinics are meant to be for juniors. If they're here in the one place, they'll make friends and just create some harmony within the local area.
Very easy, not too hard.
We need to invest in our young people today.
These guys here, James, Silva, Tito and David, yeah? They're here today to present you with a little gift for coming out.
They now have to make a new life in a peaceful, positive way.
Rotarians, they came here when her mother and father died.
We picked this family around 2004. We were led by a young sister. So we gave them assistance in terms of health, in terms of food, and other utensils that they wanted as a normal child. When these children fall sick, we normally use their guardians and the neighbors, so they telephone to us and seek for help. Because this is a longer distance, in most cases they can't travel to the hospital. So they call us and explain what happens with them and what their problem is. We normally come, examine them and treat them.
I want to become a nurse to help the orphans. I don't want to see them when they are crying, sick, and they don't have anything to eat.
Despite the fact that their parents died, they wish to have the best life that we all have.
For community, we do it cause we care. We do it cause we're Rotary, and Rotary's everywhere. We work because it's needed, we're on it every day. We want to make the world a better place, so Rotary's here to stay. Rotary is community, Rotary is care. Rotary Clubs Australia, Rotary's everywhere. People motivated, working every day to make our world a better place. That's Rotary today. To make our world a better place. That's Rotary today. For community, we do it cause we care. We do it cause we're Rotary, and Rotary's everywhere. We work because it's needed, we're on it every day. We want to make the world a better place, so Rotary's here to stay. Rotary is community, Rotary is care. Rotary's all around the world, Rotary's everywhere. People motivated, working every day to make our world a better place. That's Rotary today. To make our world a better place. That's Rotary today.
The Foreign Coin Repatriation Project of the Rotary Club of Hornsby is entering its third decade and is becoming larger than life. We need your help to keep it going for decades more. Currently, we collect foreign coins from Bendigo Banks, American Express, Travel Money Oz, selected Westpac and Commonwealth Bank branches, as well as Harvey World Travel. We use numbered, locked Perspex boxes for collection. Each box is collected by one of our collection officials and replaced with an empty box. From there, each box is brought to one of several coordination areas where the coins are weighed, recorded, and allocated to sorters. Each box is tracked via its unique number so we know where each box is, how long it has been there, and the likely time it will need to be collected. As each box's contents are weighed and recorded, we have an idea of how much to expect on a regular basis, and therefore how many sorting personnel might be called upon. We also can identify what geographical areas might need more collection points, so we can maximize the service to our community. Each sorter has a method that works for them. There is no right way to do it, except to do it accurately. Some people sort into different colors before sorting into countries. Some sort into collections they recognize, then one pile for the rest, and revisit that group later for refinement. Our members, our friends, and our friends' friends help us to repatriate the coins to their originating countries. Some coins are even donated directly to areas in need, like an orphanage in Vietnam, a mental health clinic in Indonesia, or the Rotary Club of Port Klang, Malaysia, as we do. The coins we cannot return to the countries of origin are collected by a company in Brisbane called CoinCo, which, incidentally, was started by another Rotarian. All foreign monies collected go toward international projects, and Australian monies can go toward domestic charities. We hope that we have told you just enough to encourage you to ask questions and perhaps become involved. We currently have Rotary clubs in Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, and locations around the Northern Territory. The Rotary Club of Hornsby is currently opening this established project to other Rotary clubs. Our philosophy is that we can do more good as a large group than as individual clubs. You can benefit your charities, as we do, easily and quickly. Get involved now. Just ask us how.
Yes, Graham, we're talking about the Hearing Project. The reason for doing it is because hearing is just so important to us as human beings. Jane Goodall in the Lisbon Convention talked about how human contact through hearing is so critical.
But what is it that makes it so important?
Well, it's our human communication. It's the way we interact with each other. It's the language that we have that makes us human.
My youngest daughter, Kate, who's actually here with us today, has had a significant hearing impairment which we've had to deal with as a family with her growing up, and I guess she could tell you her story herself.
I have an experience with hearing loss that started when I was 11. My hearing loss was picked up in a routine primary school hearing test, and it was a big shock because we thought my hearing was fine. It turned out I had a mild to moderate loss, and the doctors told my mum that they thought it would be a loss that would be progressive and I might become profoundly deaf by the time I was 40. But in actual fact, I was profoundly deaf by the age of 18. So I stopped using the phone at 12. I was struggling to hear in groups by 12 or 13. I got hearing aids at the age of 11, and my mum had to deal with a teenager who just didn't want to wear them. It got to the point where when I was at university, I was wearing my hearing aids full time but hiding them, and I got to the point where I felt like there was really no future for me because I didn't have any role models to look up to that were successful, any deaf role models. I only saw the people on the disability pension. So I got to the point where I said to Mum, I don't think I can really go on much longer like this. I'm struggling and I don't think there's any future for me. And so she took me aside and said, look, don't worry, we can do this together. We looked into different things like a cochlear implant, which wasn't at the time the right thing for me. They said it was too much of a risk. I booked into lip reading classes with Better Hearing Australia, and being the youngest person there, age 21, I walked in, there were people aged 60 to 80, and they said, love, you're in the wrong room. And I said, no, I actually need to be here, I'm deaf too. So after 7 weeks of learning to lip read, I became very good, and I got captions on the TV. Mum helped me a lot with that. I became much more open and honest about my hearing loss, and I told people when I met them straight away, just letting you know, I'm deaf, you're going to have to speak clearly, and if I ignore you, it's not because I don't like you, I just haven't heard you. And when I was 29, I decided to take the leap and get a cochlear implant, and it was the best thing I've ever done. Within a week, I was on the phone to my mum, and I talked to her for a whole 4.5 minutes, but she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it was me, and it had been 15 years since I'd spoken to her, and it's just been amazing. I can hear really well now, but I'm so glad that I took the time, those years, to get used to having to deal with not hearing and being open about it, because that has been the most critical thing that has helped me deal with it day to day, is the openness and honesty and not being ashamed about it. It's just a part of who I am, and it doesn't stop me from doing anything.
Well, I must confess that I also wear hearing aids. In fact, they are my mother-in-law's, but they work perfectly well for me, and it makes a huge difference. Kate, thank you so much for your story today, and especially the support and relationship you had with your mother through that journey, and also the work that you currently do. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Graham.
And thank you for joining our Fireside Chat today. This project of Lynn started off as an awareness-raising project. It was going to work across, and is working across, all avenues of service. But it's got so much support from within and outside Rotary that now there's a component which is funding a PhD scholarship through Australian Rotary Health. And so we hope that as this comes out in more detail, all clubs will be able to support that as a district project to fund a PhD scholar in the area of hearing. Until next time, thank you.
So if Rotary can start something where they say, make it visible, talk about it, be open, it's not a big deal, it's a fact of life.
Welcome to the Concourse, the home of our first conference for District 9685.
Hi, I'm Noel.
Hi, I'm Tom. Thanks, District Governor Graham, for giving us the opportunity to tell our fellow Rotarians about an exciting and different kind of Rotary conference right here in Chatswood, the retail hub of the North Shore. We're right here at the somewhat noisy but exciting performing arts venue called the Concourse.
Yes, and next year, on the 23rd of February, it's Rotary's 108th birthday and the first year of our new district, 9685. So, let's make this a great celebration of both events.
This will be a one-day conference. Yes! The first of its kind in our district. We're easily accessible by public transport. The Chatswood railway station is just moments away. There's free parking right here at the venue, first come, first served, and of course there's even room for minibuses.
And we'll have outstanding music from Chatswood High, Knox Grammar Brass Ensemble, Willoughby City Band, and a Dixieland Jazz Band, as well as performers from Willoughby Theatre Company. That's your place, Tom.
It is.
We promise you something different and exciting. Come and see for yourself.
Join us to celebrate the achievements of our district's clubs, as well as enjoying an outstanding program called Paul Harris Remembers. But that's a secret. There's also a reminder about why we should be Rotarians, new developments in hearing technology, recognition of vocational excellence, and a showcase by Rotarac, to name a few.
Yes, and we'll also highlight some of the great results in Rotary service, both locally and internationally, like Shelterbox and the quick response by our district and clubs in the recent bushfires, right here in our own area. So let's celebrate the achievements of our clubs together.
Our breakout sessions will include sustainability, Rotary grants,
ROMAC and Interplast, Rotary Public Relations, Polio, Women in Rotary, and a segment called Stop the Bullying.
Rotary will be showcased not only inside this venue, but also on the urban screen, in the Chatswood Mall, and for the first time ever, we'll go online.
You can get more information on our conference website. That's conference2014.rotarydistrict9685.org.au. Make sure you register.
Yes, make sure you register now for this conference where we'll all be informed, inspired and entertained.
See you here at the concourse in February.
Thank you, Tom and Noel, for telling us about the conference and showing us around the concourse, the fantastic venue we have for our first conference in District 9685. If it's not yet the 1st of December and you have not registered for the conference, can I suggest you do so straight away to take advantage of the early bird registration. In any case, our conference is a great value for money. For new Rotarians, there's a special rate, and that rate lasts all the way through to the beginning of the conference for just $70. Now, the good news is that that rate will also apply to a guest that you may wish to invite who is a non-Rotarian, a neighbour or a work colleague, so you can share with them the wonderful world of Rotary. I look forward to seeing you on the 23rd.
Wherever I go, I always say, I don't have money to afford a doctor, but the filter lets me avoid many troubles. They are not just giving us a concrete box, they are giving us health and a better quality of life for our children.
An hour, even a couple hours of walking. Women seem to really be drawn to having someone just do a quick assessment of them and feel their belly and hear the baby's heartbeat and hear that everything is going well.
Easton is the oldest public high school in the city of New Orleans. It breathes the city because it holds a lot of tradition. When you look towards the school, you see this castle. And within this kingdom, everybody is a family.
We travel from place to place, you know, trying to figure out where could we go, because, you know, New Orleans is our home.
I grew up in uptown New Orleans. I moved to Hammond, Louisiana.
I grew up in New Orleans, born and raised. I had to evacuate to Dallas, Texas, about 8 hours away.
We were determined that we were going to make it. If this school didn't make it, the city wouldn't.
It is no either or, correct? It is both.
Every child had a book and every child had a seat.
Okay, he said it's 20 degrees Celsius.
Because science is just or more important.
It was a beacon.
Got it?
Got it.
And it gave momentum to others that wanted to come back and open schools.
To the flag. United States of America.
It could not have happened without everybody working together and saying, you know, this is our city, this is our school.
Without the school, where do we have to go? I mean, to get an education and to possibly venture out into other worlds and come back and help our community. If the school wouldn't have reopened, what future would we have?
Rotary really helped us to expand the scope of what we're doing. Now, just 2 years down the line, we're working with over 100 women. Ultimately, our goal is to work with over 1,000 women because we believe that investing in women can create sustainable and measurable impacts in this community that will help to end child labor and ultimately alleviate the cycle of chronic poverty.
I've come from Sale, so I travelled to Churchill to do my uni for 4 years, and now I'm at the Sale Hospital and hopefully stay here next year after my grading is finished.
My role in the East Gippsland Regional Clinical School is I'm an administration officer supporting the academics here. We run a program for medical students. We have undergraduate medical students and graduate entry medical students. The hospitals are always short of nursing staff and qualified doctors and allied health professionals in no matter what part of Australia it's in, rural and remote areas.
Getting the scholarship is really beneficial because it allows me to stay in this area and it helps me be able to work as much as I need to be able to consolidate all my skills and put all my theory into practice.
Australian Rotary Health can offer these scholarships, which really helps the people stay. So the community benefits. The hospitals would benefit, of course. If the hospitals benefit, then it flows back into the community again. It's a two-way street.
Australian Rotary Health hold annual fundraising events, a fun way to raise money for health research. The Great Australian Bike Ride was a 9-stage ride around Australia. State bike riding events are held annually to raise money for Australian Rotary Health. Annual Rotary Golf Days highlight the importance of funding into mental health research. You might also have the opportunity to have a round of golf with Michael Klim, an Australian Rotary Health ambassador. Australian Rotary Health's largest fundraising event is Hat Day, a community event to spread mental health awareness. Hat Day is a day you and your Rotary Club can promote the importance of health research. The day also gives vital support to people suffering from mental health related issues. Remember, mental health is not something you want to keep under your hat. Australian Rotary Health, supporting healthier minds, bodies and communities through research, awareness and education. Let's ensure every Australian leads a healthier life.
Because, you know, the big bone of contention about all conferences, no matter where they are, is the timing of them. And they can often get out of time through no one's particular fault. But I have to thank you individually and collectively for being absolutely fabulous at keeping to time and helping us keep on time. Now, to start our last session, may I introduce to you Margaret Sachs, who's the Vocational Awards Committee Chair. That's all I need to say. Please welcome her to the microphone.
Distinguished guests, fellow Rotarians and friends, good afternoon and welcome. District 9680 acted in the spirit of support and recognition of the ideal of service in the pursuit of all vocations in 1983, when the first Vocational Excellence Awards were presented at that year's conference in Bathurst. This year, as we celebrate the first district conference of the new amalgamated District 9685, we are delighted to carry on the tradition of that inaugural presentation. Today we shall recognise 3 individuals who came to the attention of a Rotarian who realised their outstanding dedication to their vocation. These persons, in the eyes of their nominating Rotary clubs and in the view of the Awards Committee, have demonstrated outstanding achievement in vocational excellence. They have benefited not only themselves, but also their professions and the wider community. They have been selected from a field of nominees because they have fulfilled the ideal of service in pursuit of their vocation. Each awardee is sitting with the president of their nominating Rotary Club. An individual's vocational achievement is a reason for celebration because our collective lives are enhanced by that individual's effort. I encourage you all to go away today from this conference with your senses alert to the possibility that you may well know of a future awardee and may act upon the importance of bringing them into this program of recognition. I shall introduce each nominee and then pass over to Jeff Brennan, who will give each awardee the opportunity to augment their personal story through a brief interview. At the end of each interview, I shall ask the nominating club president to bring him forward for presentation of their award by our District Governor, Graham. As each of our guests comes forward, let our acclamation demonstrate our appreciation of their achievements and recognise their vocational excellence. May I introduce our first nominee, John Rasko. The microscopic world of cells is mind-bendingly complex. It requires a special kind of person to take on the enormous task of understanding this world in order to solve our greatest medical challenges. John Rasko, Professor in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Sydney, is such a person. A haematologist and pathologist by trade, John tackles this mysterious miniature world of genomics and stem cell research with a giant intellect and an even greater personal drive on his ceaseless quest for revolutionary new treatments and cures to our most challenging diseases. Professor Rasko completed 18 years of study and practice before getting into his stride in understanding just how much these tiny cells and their complexities demand of our intellect. However, he is no cloistered academic. John believes in holistic, bench-to-bedside approach to haematology. His career is evenly balanced between seeing individual patients, conducting regular diagnoses, getting out into the public arena, promoting scientific and advancement and ethics, and sitting in the lab at the cutting edge of biomedical research, developing treatments that he can take back to his patients' bedsides. A pioneer in the development of gene technology, in his capacity as Director of Cell and Molecular Therapy Laboratories at RPA Hospital, Professor Rasko has made a significant contribution to that technology which identifies genetic abnormalities and thereby improves the packaging of normal genes for use in gene therapy for hereditary diseases and cancer. At the same time, Professor Rasko maintains a robust teaching schedule, supervising PhD students and training future scientists. John's 27-page CV covers the entire spectrum of his vocational life. This includes public speaking, clinical trials, securing patents, writing books, papers and articles, media appearances, government advisory roles, ethics committees, volunteer work, numerous prizes and awards highlighted by an Office of the Order of Australia. Professor Rasko's life's work has facilitated the cure of serious diseases by pioneering and developing revolutionary gene and adult stem cell therapies. Already, his significant breakthroughs have saved and prolonged tens of thousands of lives. As he continues on his vocational path, the impact of his tireless efforts will be felt by millions of people around the world and many generations into the future. John Rasko.
Professor Rasko, we've just heard a précis of an illustrious career. Is there a single event in that career that stands out as a defining point or something of the utmost significance?
Besides meeting my wife in medical school, who's sitting at the front.
They're all the same.
There is indeed one idea, and it came to me much at the same time as meeting my wife in medical school, and it was an idea that has been persistent in my mind and has been recurrent, and I can't get it out of my head. And it's simply summarised as genes cause diseases. And I haven't been able to get that out of my head simply because it leads to a number of consequences that were not lost on the discoverers of DNA structure, Watson and Crick, and it led to the Human Genome Project and the realisation that the many thousands of human diseases that are caused by genes are ultimately, therefore, treatable in using that knowledge. And the connection that my life's work and my vocation has been devoted to is using genes not as diagnostic modes, but as therapeutics themselves, the idea of gene therapy.
Thank you very much, Professor Rasko. So you've developed gene technology to treat disease. Do you actually envisage a future where the ordinary man on the street can feel that the cancers we fear so much are easily treatable or more easily treatable than now?
Yeah, I think you're right in highlighting cancer. We do have reasons to be fearful. The World Health Organisation has recently repeated the fact that cancer is the commonest cause of death. 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women by the age of 85 will suffer a death from cancer. It's an increasing problem because of the ageing of our population. Most feared prostate and breast cancer in respective men and women, but we're doing well. Over the last 40 years, survival has substantially improved, and in my lifetime we've seen improvements in childhood cancer from 10% certainty of death, 10% rates of survival, up to 90% rates of survival, and human adult cancers as well. The idea that we've developed in my team at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital and the Centenary Institute at the University of Sydney is to marry our knowledge of genetics and use genes as therapeutics. It's a compelling idea because by introducing genes which we know cause disease, we ask, why can't we just put the normal version of an abnormal gene in diseases like cystic fibrosis and haemophilia and thalassemia, and they're exactly the diseases that we're attacking right now in clinical trials at the hospital today.
Thank you very much, Professor. Now,
photograph?
Yep.
Oh.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, this way.
Hey, good.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to say a few words?
Just a couple of
words. Please do.
I really am very, very grateful to everybody at Rotary for inspiring the future generations by this vocational award. I've had a lot to do with Rotary. I've given lots of talks at sessions. I've also had students who've benefited from the medical research scholarships. So Rotary has had an important impact, not least of which on my career, but also on the career of future generations, because these vocational awards, I hope, will serve to inspire young people in the audience and young people who learn about these going forward. I'm extremely happy and proud to have my family with me, my wife and 2 kids and my mother-in-law. Also very, very pleased to have a great mentor of mine, Professor Baston, and many teachers who've led to this award. I'm extremely grateful and thank you very much.
Thank you. May I now introduce our second nominee, Gerard Henderson. It is a very exclusive club indeed, that club of political commentators who have become household names in this country. It is even more exclusive when your name is made not so much through the glitz and glamour of TV news and current affairs, but on the scale of your intellect and political insight, as an opinion leader in some of our nation's most respected publications. Author, columnist, political commentator and household name, Gerard Henderson has established his reputation and credentials over 4 decades, applying his wit and analysis to the cut and thrust of every great national debate in living memory. Dr. Gerard Henderson, Executive Director of the Sydney Institute, a not-for-profit organisation he founded with his wife Anne Henderson in 1989, has written weekly columns in publications including the Sydney Morning Herald since 1990 and more recently The Australian. Gerard steadfastly maintains his own ground, often swimming against the tide of fashionable opinion in his desire to lead by example and show that principles combined with deep intellect and insight can cut through the nation's psyche and raise the bar of political debate. Through the Sydney Institute, Gerard Henderson becomes more than just a single, albeit formidable, voice by creating an entire medium for intellectual discourse, stimulating, questioning and repositioning the collective philosophical, social and political zeitgeist as it evolves through often turbulent and uncertain times. Gerard gained a PhD at Melbourne University, taught at Tasmania and La Trobe universities, and embarked on a lengthy career working at the political coalface. He had stints as a staffer for Kevin Newman in Malcolm Fraser's government, the Department of Industrial Relations, and as Chief of Staff to John Howard while he was Deputy Leader and later Leader of the Liberal Party. Paul Keating appointed him to the board of the Australian Foundation for Culture and Humanities. John Howard went on to appoint him to the Foreign Affairs Council, and more recently Kevin Rudd invited him to the Australia 2020 Summit held in April 2008. This real-world experience has enriched and given credibility to his universally read columns, opinion pieces, numerous books, and his expanding foray into other mediums. Radio, through ABC Radio National's Breakfast, TV and ABC's Insiders programme, and in latter years his independent and prolific online outlet Media Watchdog. Gerard Henderson embarked on his chosen vocation from the outset, with a determination to seek truth and led by example, and now inspires the next generation of thinkers to equal and move up to the greater heights of vocational excellence and participation in our nation's journey.
Dr. Henderson, you're a well-known communicator to many people in this audience. As a communicator of ideas in the community, what's your view on the benefits of social media? Do you think they've helped the debate, or does the medium now dominate the message?
Well, it's a good question. First of all, I should say I can't quite match John. I met my wife at a bookshop. Not quite like a medical school. There you go. I'm coming back here. People say nice things about me. It's pretty rare. Social media, good question. I think like all change, by and large, it's good. It's got its problems, but essentially it's a good development because it's given people an opportunity to make a contribution to the public debate, whereas previously this was dominated by editors in newspapers or producers in radio or television, whereas now individuals can set up their own blogs, send out their own messages. So by and large, it's been good. Sure, there are problems, there is abuse, personal abuse and other kinds of problems which I think can be managed. But overall, I think it's positive. And certainly at the Sydney Institute, we use it a lot. Anne never sends out fewer than 10 emails before morning tea advising about what we're doing. As was said, I've got a media watchdog blog which I put up on Friday. So at our institute we use social media and it benefits us and it benefits our membership. But certainly there are problems, and there is a lot of abuse out there which you probably didn't get before because it was filtered by newspapers and television and radio producers, and now in a sense there's no filter except the filter of public opinion. So I think my short answer is it's beneficial change, but like all change, not without its downside at times.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henderson. Stay standing, please. Come across.
I think I should go to bookshops more often. Thank you very much. There we go. There we go. Say Rotary. Up Rotary. Up Rotary. Up Rotary. No one said that before. There we go. Yes, I'm sorry about mucking that up. I mean, it wasn't pointed out that during my many years at university I failed the choreograph test and tend to get things out of place. Look, it's a great honour. I'm very grateful for the award. As I said, I don't usually get this kind of acclamation, and I'm not quite sure how to handle this, but I better feign a bit of humility and say that I've never felt more humble. And as someone of predominantly Irish background, there's always that great joke where it's said about, there's no doubt about the Irish, it says they're always tops for humility. Can I just say thank you? At the Sydney Institute, we deliberately set up, with Anne and myself, 25 years ago, we set up not a traditional think tank where people did work and wrote papers and presented them, although that's important work, but we set up a public forum where people could come along and express their views, where anyone could join up, a very democratic organisation where speakers come along, they give a 30-minute talk, people respond, can ask questions, can criticise, provided they're professional and respectful, and we've set up a process of lively debate. In other words, it's a kind of interaction with the community. A bit like Rotary in a different sense. When I first started the Institute, I was pleased to get invitations from Rotary, and it gave me a chance to talk about what we were doing. But I was very conscious that Rotary was community-focused. And what we set up an institute which is different, but it was very much community-focused, a truly democratic organisation where we're interested in what people have to say. And our speakers who come along, all kinds of speakers in the Australian political context, from coalition people to Labor people to Greens and others, trade union leaders, business leaders, commentators, historians, they all come along, they all talk, and we involve our membership in talking to them, and they appreciate it. So I think the message of community is a very important message. You do it in your way, and we do it in our way, but between us I think we make a contribution. So I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
May I introduce our third nominee, Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons. High-definition news video footage of bushfires, choppers dropping water bombs, and reports of the aftermaths and personal tragedies of Australia's devastating and all too common bushfires barely give a hint of the ferocious, soul-destroying realities and monumental challenges facing firefighters, as we've seen earlier today. Consider even more the burden of responsibility of dealing with the entire firefighting enterprise that is placed on the shoulders of a Rules Fire Service Commissioner. RFS Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons is the one whose selfless volunteering as a teenager has evolved into a lifelong vocation which ultimately placed him in this unenviable but highly respected position. In New South Wales, we have our fair share of bushland and have experienced many catastrophic conflagrations. Shane Fitzsimmons joined Duffy's Forest Rural Fire Brigade at the age of 15 to fight fires alongside his dad. From frontline firefighting to sector leader and divisional commander, Shane has filled almost every office within the brigade structure, including brigade captain and group officer. His youthful start has seen him become the service's youngest ever commissioner, rising through the ranks to State Operations Officer in 1996 and Assistant Commissioner responsible for operations in 1998, where he was responsible for coordinating the fighting of some of the largest bushfires in our state's history, including the 2001-2 and 2002-3 fire seasons. His career continued to bloom into regional management and strategic development. In 2004, Shane undertook a 12-month secondment to the Australian Institute of Police Management as the inaugural Visiting Fellow of the Australasian Fire Authorities Council. Commissioner Fitzsimmons was awarded the Australian Fire Service Medal in 2001 and as a recipient of the National Medal and the RFS Long Service Award for 15 years active service. He is a life member of the Duffy's Forest Fire Brigade. Shane is a strong supporter of the volunteer ethos and is a devoted family man. His wife Lisa and 2 young daughters are with us today. We almost take it for granted that when a fire breaks out, the Rural Fire Service will be there to put it out. It is only thanks to champions like Shane Fitzsimmons, whose vocation in firefighting and control began, like many, with a direct personal response to the looming threat of a devastating bushfire. That firefighting continues to be such a professional, effective and vital service to all who live in this beautiful but harsh and unforgiving country of ours. Shane Fitzsimmons.
Commissioner Fitzsimmons, in the television news coverage of the bushfires in New South Wales, you're always thrust to the forefront of the picture. But I always seem to see a well-known political face just over your shoulder, hanging on every word, left or right. Tell me, does the political world loom large in your career at the Rural Fire Service?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. It does, and I think we would all expect it to do, and that is because they're our elected leaders. And whilst you're quite right, they're always there, or often there, in those media events. But what people don't realise, more often than not, is just how present they are behind the scenes, taking a very deliberate and meaningful interest in what's unfolding, what's at risk, what are the strategies, what are the implications, what support do they need to give us to make our response and our management the best that it can be. And just this most recent fire event particularly that affected so much of this district's area of responsibility with the Lithgow, Blue Mountains and Hawkesbury region, up through the Central Coast, up through Lake Marmora and what have you. Every day during that intensive period in October, the Minister for Police and Emergency Services, Gallagher, was at the state headquarters. He set up office there with his team. The Premier would call in very regularly, or indeed be on the phone several times a day. So our politicians do take a very active interest. They're our community elected leaders. Their community hurts. They want to know what they can do to make a difference. And I've been very much benefited from a good, positive relationship with our political leaders, both in terms of investing in the organisation in the quiet times, but also being there with that unequivocal support during the most difficult and destructive times, as we saw during October.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, there's one other question I'd like to ask you, and look, you're still a young man, and I certainly don't want to suggest that I'm cutting your career short, although after that last answer you may be standing for Parliament shortly. But Commissioner, Have you given a thought to the legacy you'd like to leave the Rural Fire Service?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and I hope I'm not being cut short because I'm very passionate about the organisation and I've got a lot to do and a lot to still achieve. I think, like everybody, when you leave an organisation, you simply want it to be better than when you started. And for us in the Rural Fire Service, and I think more broadly as a community, the single biggest strategic challenge that I see on my radar when it comes to the Rural Fire Service is volunteerism, maintaining a viable, reliable, professional volunteer workforce into the future. With so many competing demands on our time, all sorts of pressures that come to bear external to the want to serve the community. Right up amongst there for me is diversity and professionalism. I know our membership is something like 24% female. It's simply not good enough. There is a role for everybody in the Rural Fire Service. It's not just the men and women out on the front line holding the hoses. And I think there's an old line that for every soldier in the field, there's 3 to 5 working somewhere else to make sure all the support and all the safety that can be brought to bear is being concentrated on that frontline soldier. So too is the RFS. So for me, I want to make sure we've got a really sound platform for a diversified membership base, for a membership that is truly reflective of the local community in which they're operating and trying to protect, because without volunteers, which is so powerful in this country, without volunteers, communities right across New South Wales and right across Australia would be very much the poorer if it wasn't for those men and women that give selflessly of their time for the want for nothing in return, but to be looked after, to be invested in, and to know that people at the top take a very deliberate and caring interest in their welfare.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Fitzsimmons.
Thanks, Graham. This is indeed an honour, and I think it's all been set up here today. It is a privilege to be selected as a few when there are so many truly deserving people working right across our community, doing so much good for this great nation. And to be here today on this stage does a couple of things for me. Firstly, I love the fact that my wife and children have been able to join me today, which doesn't happen too often on all these events. But secondly, to have a strong, enduring partnership with Rotary. I do spend as much time as I can with Rotary, and you are in so many ways, like the volunteer, the unsung heroes, part of that glue which is so critical in the social fabric of communities right across New South Wales. And I also understand that today it's fitting that I simply say happy Rotary birthday, as I understand today is 109 years old. Thank you very much.
Rotarians and friends, we have been privileged this afternoon to be part of the Vocational Excellence Awards. We have said thank you to 3 outstanding people for the example of excellence that they have demonstrated to their vocations. This wonderful program only exists because Rotary clubs take time to identify and nominate achievers in the community. To honour our appreciation of this district-wide effort, I shall introduce the presidents of the nominating clubs who are on stage today. Professor John Rasko was nominated by the Rotary Club of Chatswood, President Dieter Torhayden. Gerard Henderson was nominated by the Rotary Club of North Sydney Sunrise, President Ken Preshaw. Rural Fire Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons was nominated by the Rotary Club of Barara, President Alan Smith. Thank you for that round of applause, and thank you.
See the power of the hand? Not that way, it was that way, Jared. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to take a quick photo shoot of the three of you and your nominating clubs and presidents. And of course, the presentation today with Margaret and Jeff is superb. It just highlights the importance that we place on vocation and vocational excellence in Rotary. So I'll ask you firstly to give a round of applause as Margaret and Jeff come to take either side of the group here. Bill's up the back, quick photograph, and then we move on with the program. So would you please thank Margaret and Jeff?
We don't get any better looking the further away you get. It's up in the dark there. That it, Bill? Okay.
All done?
Would have been better with the camera. Let's go there,
I now give you back to our Master of Ceremonies, Tom Sweeney. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of a surprise coming up right now. We're just going to set up the stage a little bit. You know, there are legends and there are legends, and I'm going to introduce you to one right now. If you're like me, growing up in Sydney, you've heard on the radio, you've seen on television, and you've just known about this person, but until recently I never had the chance to really get to meet and know him. And I'm talking about Kamal. It seemed more impossible than improbable that Kamal would become one of the great stars of Australian music, with reputation reaching around the globe. When he was born, Kandia Kamarasavan, to Tamil Hindu parents in Malaysia. In 1953, he arrived in Adelaide to complete schooling after a tormented childhood under Japanese occupation. But Kamal was not to succumb to self-pity. He began singing, inspired by other great black artists like Nat King Cole and Paul Robeson. He shortened his name to Kamal, that's K-A-M-A-L, but was introduced one day as Camel. Thereafter, he shrewdly placed an H just at the end to make it Kamal. Now, Rupert Murdoch championed the young singer, helping him to avoid deportation under the White Australia policy. Murdoch also encouraged him to move to Sydney, found him work, and accommodated him in his own home for 2 years. That's amazing. He had a contract with Phonogram, who wanted him to be a classical artist. With typical determination, Kamal pushed against the label's intentions and became a household name for his interpretations of love songs and ballads on record, in concert, and via regular television performances. He advanced his own career once by hiring the London Palladium for a one-man show. How brave is that? He went on to perform in such prestigious venues as Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House. He gave a Royal Command performance for Queen Elizabeth in 1982 at the Commonwealth Games. In 1975, he became a household name in Europe with a song called The Elephant Song. He has now recorded over 30 albums containing many #1 hits and earning over 100 gold and platinum records. The longevity of his success has few parallels. But wait, there's more. He became a member of the Order of Australia in 1994. He was Australian Father of the Year in 1998 and was awarded the Australian Centenary Medal by the Queen in 2004. In 2011, he met President Obama and subsequently recorded the Gettysburg Address for his 2012 triple CD album, Heart and Soul. In 2013, he was invited to deliver the Gettysburg Address at Parliament House on the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's original oration. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to move to this microphone to make sure it works. But to introduce to you a gentleman who's been involved with Rotary since 1971, is a Paul Harris Fellow, And the sale of every one of these CDs will benefit the Eradication of Polio program by $10 for every one that's sold. So I hope you will support his efforts and the efforts of those eradicating polio. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to you a gentleman that you'll have to go a long way to meet and better. Ladies and gentlemen, Kamal.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star. No matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. Thank you. And a very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. And not so long ago, as some of you might know, there was the memorial service for the late Pat Riley, the mayor of Willoughby. And I had a chance to sit with Noel at the back, never thinking that I was going to be here a few weeks later. And what a man Pat Riley was. Just give him a hand. He's not. And and talking about impossible dreams, the fact that I'm here is, anyway, is an impossible dream. Meaning you've already heard Tom say that I had problems with the immigration department and all that. I won't go into that. But there was one man called Bill Schneider, who was the immigration official in Adelaide in 1958, who refused to take the orders from Canberra to deport one Kandaya Kambaleswaran. Wherever you're, Bill, I'll always remember you. And there are so many people. I mean, the fact that that I'm here with you today is because, really, for Bob Aitken, he was in Chicago 48 hours ago. Is he here by any chance? Where are you? Did you make it? Where are you? I did get an email from him in Chicago about 48 hours ago. Thanks to him. And thanks to Tom, who said, do you want to do this? So, there are so many things that have happened because I've been here 60 years now, and I'm a 47-year-old FBA, foreign-born Australian, and very proud of it, you know. And so many things have happened, and one of there have been dreams like singing for the Queen during the Commonwealth Games. At the other end, the end of the valley, was not to get the opportunity to share a few sentiments through a song that I had recorded in anticipation of the bicentenary 26 years ago. And so, as you can imagine, when the bicentenary was being celebrated, I felt a little bit off color, if you'll forgive the expression. And I wasn't pleased about not being included in it. And 6 months later, I did get a chance to share this song through one Sir Eric Neil, who invited me to sing at the Duke of Edinburgh Awards in Brisbane, just before the Expo, in the presence of His Royal Highness Prince Edward. So as a way of introduction, I said, this is an FBA song dedicated to the FDAs, the Fair Dinkum Aussies. You know. And by the way, how many FBAs, foreign-born Australians, are here in the audience? Yeah? Not that many. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so as a way of introduction, I said to His Royal Highness and others, Prince Edward, this is an FBA song dedicated to the FDAs. 24 hours later, or less than that, I met Sir Eric Neil and Prince Philip, and Prince Philip approached me. He says, what's this I've been hearing all night about FBAs and FDAs? And I tried to explain. He wasn't listening. And it made me 10 feet tall. I recovered my self-esteem, and I wrote a letter to Sir Donald Bradman the next day telling him that I mentioned his name in the song and that he wouldn't be too offended. And I waited anxiously for a few days. And on the 28th of October, 1988, he wrote me the kindest letter and said that he was honored that I mentioned his name in the letter, and he looked forward to meeting with me, etc. And I was invited to his home on Melbourne Cup Day in 1988 for a cup of tea. And I think he was impressed because he thought I was Sachin Tendulkar's uncle. And all because of a few words in a song. So to the FDAs and FBAs, I ask you what I ask myself every day. What does this country mean to me? What does it mean to you? If you ask me to begin at the beginning, it's the house I live in, my neighbors down the street, the proud and smiling faces of the people that I meet, the children at the playground and Christmas in the sun, the g'day and the handshake, that's Australia to me. The town I live in, the friends that I have found, the people who just came here from nations all around, those who built this country, the air of feeling free, and the right to speak your own mind. That's Australia to me. Words of Banjo Patterson, McCullough and Henry Lawson, the style of Donald Bradman, Dick Costello and Dame Joan. They're Smithy and Ben Lexon, achievers without peers, and the dreaming of a people who've been here a million years. This land I live in, the goodness everywhere, a place of wealth and beauty within enough for all to share. Yes, I love this sunburned country, so vital, young and free, with a promise for tomorrow that's Australia to me. But it's the people. Yes, especially the people. That is Australia to me. That's it. And I was very lucky to meet another great Australian, Peter Allen. And he promised me he would write me a song, from my point of view, an FBA song. But he didn't get a chance to write for me. But he wrote one immortal song. I'd like to share it with you. You know it better than I do. I've been to cities that never closed down, from New York to Rio and old London town. But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia home. I'm always traveling, I love being free, and so I keep leaving the sun and the sea. But my heart lies waiting over the phone. I still call Australia home. All the sons and daughters spinning round the world, away from their families and friends. And as the world gets older and colder, good to know where your journey ends. But someday we'll all be together once more, when all of the ships come back to the shore. I realize something I've always known. I still call Australia home. Yes, someday we'll all be together once more, when all of the ships come back to the shore. I realize something I've always known. I still call Australia, I still call Australia, I still call Australia home. But no matter how far, oh how wide I roam, I still call Australia, I still call Australia, I still call Australia home. I still call Australia home. Thank you. Can you kill the music, please? Thank you. You know, talk about impossible dream. It was a true, incredible set of circumstances which I won't go into. 12 months ago, I did the CD called Heart and Soul. There are 60 songs in it, and as Tom might have told you, having met President Obama, I recorded the Gettysburg Address. Till then, till I met him, I might have read it once in my life. But having met him, I don't know why. He didn't tell me to, but I read it till I could remember it, and I recited it. And then eventually the ambassador, the former U.S. ambassador, Jeff Blige, sent it to the president. And last July 4th, the same ambassador invited me to recite it at the New South Wales Art Gallery for the 4th of July celebrations. That's in it. And if I have a dream, I would like every American to hear it, one way or another. If you know anyhow to do it, by fair means or foul, I would like every American, in fact, every person to hear it, because it's to do about freedom and self-respect. And I don't know how Abraham Lincoln found those words. There are a lot of myths that he wrote it at the back of an envelope the day before, which is an absolute lie. He thought about it for 4 weeks. But those 272 words, I don't know any better in any language anyway, including Shakespeare. But that's in it too. But that may not mean much to you, but there are a lot of romantic songs, inspirational and whatever, including Desiderata, The Way of Life. There you are. Thank you. If you want to do something for me, spread the word. Thank you. Do it again.
Gives me great pleasure to welcome back on stage District Governor Graham Davies.
Ladies and gentlemen, we must be getting somewhat towards the end of our conference, because this will be the last time that you see Tom Sweeney today.
Please.
Well, if he will, we might get him back on stage just to say a wave when I introduce the conference team. But can I, Tom, just say how much we appreciate, and all of Rotary here appreciates your wit, your skill, your expertise in being an MC. It's not an easy job, because most of it he makes up on the spot, you know. But we do want to thank you for showing us what the 2016 jacket was. You notice this is the 5th costume change he's done today. Did you notice that? Tom, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last couple of years, we've had a development occur with the governors and the people in those positions. As you know, we have a succession plan in place in all Rotary districts that 3 years out, we've got the district governor who'll be taking the job in 3 years' time. And we've coined the phrase the G train, the governor train, because we want to get much more cooperation, continuity and succession planning happening. Well, we're going to hear from the G train right now, and it's my great pleasure to introduce District Governor-elect Ian and past District Governor Jennifer Scott.
Well, good afternoon, and this will be a short introduction because most of you probably know me by now, the ones who come to conference. But just to remind you, I'm from the Rotary Club of Central Blue Mountains, and I joined Rotary in 2003. I live in Wentworth Falls in the Blue Mountains, fortunately not in the fire zone last October. I've spent 37 years in the full-time Air Force, and now I've spent 9 years in the reserve. I used to do a lot of exercises and operations, but at the moment I'm just basically a senior mentor, I like to think of myself. I'm married, have 2 adult daughters and 3 grandkids, and I'm married to Jennifer.
And I'm also in the